All right, we're live on both. We're live on Instagram and on Facebook. Hello everyone. I will not be like Krista was yesterday. I will wait for some people to get on here. Oh, my Instagram says it's paused because of poor connection. Hello. Hello, everyone. Good to see ya. Letting some folks join in. Glad to see you here. This is going to be a very abbreviated family meeting. I just got done with a podcast with Marlon Wilson on the gospel truth.
Move your
What?
camera off
Uh,
camera. Move your.
oh, sorry. I have to move the phone off camera. Oh, my hair is crazy.
Now
Um,
turn it toward you.
sorry. Now let me. Okay,
There you go.
look. See all the structural things. I'm just not really good at. But yeah, I just finished the podcast with Marlon Wilson. If you are not familiar with Marlon Wilson, check out the Gospel Truth podcast. You can find it on Facebook and on YouTube. I'm not sure if he has an Insta account, but he is an apologist and he really has just good conversations about biblical issues, matters, theology, and so check him out. We were on there um
Black
talking
community.
about black, sorry, he just texted me, so I was trying to read it. Talking about the black community and critical race theory, and where critical race theory is damaging within the black community and the black framework. And so yeah, it was a really good conversation. For me, it's a little intimidating, I think, at times to try and talk about that, because I feel like if you don't go along with the narrative of CRT, you are often shunned by the black community anyway. And so using my voice in this space to say, CRT isn't godly, it's antithetical to scripture in a lot of ways, that already puts me in a certain light. And I have people who write in. We had somebody who was on a podcast, saying things, and so that just puts you in a certain light. And so then to come out and have a very frank and bold conversation to say, critical race theory really keeps us in our tribal groups, and by keeping us in our tribal groups, that doesn't really help the idea of individuality, of responsibility, of the image of God, all of those things. And then to talk about other things that are plaguing the black community, like abortion, like black on black crime, like education, lack of entrepreneurial skills. Like, there's a lot of things that are happening within the black community that I personally, as a black woman, feel like should be addressed. We need to be talking about those things. And so, yeah, it was a good conversation, and it was like one of those things where my heart was kind of like racing, of like, oh, I wonder, what people are going to say, or how it's going to come across. And so but that was it. But I'm really glad that we had it. I'm glad that we were able to kind of thread through some of the issues that are impacting the black community. We can't blame the fact that two gang members shot and killed each other. We can't blame whiteness for that. I can't blame whiteness for black abortion. I can't, even though I know some black people who do, or who would say that we can't talk about abortion until we talk about whiteness. I don't believe that. I think that, there are things that we can talk about within our community that impact us and have nothing to do with whiteness. There's a lot of things that we need to talk about, personal responsibility. That's something we should be talking about. And so, just thanking God for the opportunity to have that conversation. It's not a conversation that many people want to have, that many people are, I feel like, bold enough to have. We talked about courage and the level of courage that it takes to speak into these things, to say, you know what, you should be talking, you want to talk about, all these other things, systemic injustice and all that, but you, as a black pastor, you aren't talking about the women who are in your church fornicating and having abortions. Like, can we, put some things in priority here? So that's why, we're having our family meeting a little late. But yeah, it was definitely a conversation. So glad to have it. Gosh, what else?
New blog
Did
post.
we did, or I did, Krista and I together, me, put out a blog post today, and I'm not even sure of the name of it. It's, I think, when critical race theory comes to your Christian college. And it looked at Biola, um, and the issue of pronouns. So there was in one of the dorms, there was a poster put up from Women's History Month, and it highlighted like transgendered women and um, just, really looked at like these people being heroes of Women's History Month. And then the fact that we spoke with a couple of students from Biola who talked about the use of pronouns and how their RAs had, asked them in a general survey of like, what are your pronouns? But this is an all girls dorm. And the girl, like the female RAs are only supervising, female residents. So why would I need to ask you your pronoun if there wasn't an assumption that you might have a pronoun that doesn't go with your sex? These are the things that are being adopted into Christian universities, and it's really sad. I'm finishing up another blog post that will probably drop in the next day or two. So if y'all see two blog posts back to back, I'm sorry about that, but there's one that I'm really passionate about, and it just looks at the partiality of justice and how critical race theory can affirm partial justice. If I am a black woman, and I am a black woman, and I do something that might be racist, according to the standards of justice put forward by critical race theory or social justice, those things might not be seen as, racism. It might not be seen as an injustice because of the color of my skin. Yet, if a white person were to do that, they could be damned, condemned, and all of those things, and it would definitely be seen as an injustice. To thread it through a little bit more, what I talked about with Marlon, Ibram Kendi in his book How to Be an Anti-Racist talks about discrimination. And if discrimination breeds or brings forth equity, then it's okay. So if I, discriminate against white people because it brings about equity for black people, that's okay. We don't, as Christians, participate that way. But yet many Christians are adopting this very framework that we need to be racist against white people, that we need to show partiality against white people simply because of the color of their skin. Because it will bring about equity for someone who has more melanin, someone like me who's black. But God's justice standard is that we treat everyone equally. So we can talk about, wanting to have equal outcomes and things like that, and how do we lift people up, or, whatever that conversation is. But I don't do that I don't do that through measures that are unjust, because God says that we don't defer to the great, and we don't, like favor the poor. Leviticus, let me see what Leviticus 19:15 says. Hold on one second. Sorry, y'all. It's a little crazy over here. Leviticus 19:15. Actually, I think I'll start at 14 because I started 13. It says, "You shall not oppress your neighbor or rob him. The wages of a hired worker shall not remain with you all night until the morning. You shall not curse the deaf or put a stumbling block before the blind, but you shall fear your God. I am the Lord." This is verse 15. "You shall not do injustice in court. You shall not be partial to the poor." Okay, so you shall not do injustice in court. All right, so what does that mean? Means you shall not be partial to the poor or defer to the great, but in righteousness shall you judge your neighbor. You shall not go around as a slanderer among your people, and you shall not stand up against the life of your neighbor. I am the Lord. You guys, we don't, in the name of justice, act unjustly. So I don't discriminate against one to be able to do justice for another, but this is what we're seeing. And so the blog that I'm gonna put out, I'm almost done with them. I'm grieved by it because of the context in which it was written, but I think it needs to be said. I think that if the church isn't talking about partiality, if we're not talking about racism, then we'll continue to adopt a narrative that says that we can be racist in the name of justice. See, truly, if we're going to speak out against racism, I'm going to speak out against racism against everyone that it impacts. I'm not only going to talk about racism when the narrative is, well, black people are being plucked off. All black people are experiencing racism. I'm going to talk about racism in every form because it impacts other image bearers. And so if I see someone who is white who might be impacted by racism, I'm going to speak out against that. If I see an Asian American or an Asian person who is being impacted by racism, I'm going to speak out against that. If I see a Hispanic person being impacted by racism, I'm going to speak out against that. And so we do these things impartially. This is God's justice standard. It's impartiality. So no, I don't just talk about racism and injustice when it impacts people who look like me. I do it anytime because that is the standard of that God has put forward for us as his followers. Josie, oh hey, I didn't realize we were going live after the live. Good thing I checked Facebook one last time before bed. Yes, I just hopped on just to connect with the family a little bit. Racism is the sin of partiality. Yes. Let me see what is happening here on Instagram. And we're not going to be on here long. I just wanted to connect a little bit. The word says we judge righteously, having no moral foundation. CRT ascribes a measure of sin to the degree of melanin. I agree. I agree. Biblical principles are always true. The end doesn't justify the means. Never has. Let's see here. It's called a double standard. Come on through, Rihanna. It really is called a double standard. And I don't think, and this is the thing too, it's like okay, so we were talking about black people and the plight of the black community and black church and things like that on this podcast. And the fact we didn't get into the fact of the double standard. And that no one is calling that out in the black community, that I can literally walk up to a white person and go off and say that it's in the name of justice or, racism, and all these things. I can literally put things on my Facebook page that are horrible, horrible, horrible things about white people. And nobody would bat an eye. They would defend me because systemic racism, because whiteness, because white supremacy, because white privilege, because white tears, because white fragility. But if a white person turned around and wrote the exact same wording and just wrote it about somebody who was black, they would be condemned, damned, called out their name, shunned, lose their job, kicked out their church, like for the exact same thing. We as Christians are the ones who are participating in partiality. We have no room to condemn or look at the world right now. We need to be looking at ourselves. We need to be calling on black and white leaders to be speaking into these issues. Leaders from every color, not just black and white though. Like how are we truly upholding God's justice standard? If God is just, we have a standard to uphold as his children. Let's see. Let me go through. All right. Hey, Yesenia. I'll see you tomorrow. Yes, I will. Yes, I will. So you guys, my heart is really grieved. And I didn't realize it until today. Like my heart is grieved, especially over this new blog post, because we're doing this to one another. Like I can't go to the world and be like, y'all oppressing me. No, we're doing this in the church. That's what hurts. It's like we're doing this here in Christian institutions. We're leading each other astray in Christian institutions. We're adopting the culture inside of Christian institutions instead of being countercultural. We're leading our children to believe that the way of the culture is the way of the church. That is not true. And then we wonder why things look in the church the way they do. It's because we haven't discipled our people into understanding that we should really look completely different than the world. This was my response when everyone began to shout for justice in the streets. I was wondering, why aren't we shouting for all the injustice? The babies dying, the Christians being beheaded in other countries. We, the church, need to care about all injustice and not just so laser focused on the issue that fits us to get something out of it for ourselves. Yes, yes, Rihanna. So that's it. My heart is really just heavy on the idea of justice and how justice was never meant to be something that is partial. It was never meant to be something that can be used to uplift me because I'm black, but to keep somebody else down because they're white. Y'all, it's rough. It is rough, and no one, wants to be canceled. No one wants to be called out their name and stuff like that. But we have to risk it. We have to step into that space and say these things, because if not, who else is speaking truth out there? Like, yeah, we have Virgil Walker, we have Daryl Harrison, we have Fody, we have Marlon. There are people, and yet we need more. We need bigger platforms. And I'm not, please don't hear me as being a proponent of TD Jakes or anything like that. But when we look at black preachers, TD Jakes is probably as big as you get. Where is his voice calling for true biblical unity? Where is his voice speaking out against abortion? Like, where are a lot of the people, to me, in the black community? And I've struggled with, do I speak out specifically to the black community, and how does that build biblical unity? And I do air quotes around unity, because I think some people can say, well, now you're just fractioning it off and only focusing on black people. And I don't think that. I honestly have wondered about in Acts 6, I think it's Acts 6, with the issue of the Hellenists, the women, the widows who weren't getting the same like ration or allotment of food, and they brought that to the leaders. And they had a very specific issue. They were a very specific people group, and they had specific issue. And, the church or the leader spoke into that issue, even though they weren't necessarily of that, that cultural background. And I kind of feel like, we need all the people to speak into the issue of the black community. There is an issue among black believers, or people who consider themselves to be black believers, that I don't think many in the church want to address. Many in the bigger evangelical church, I don't think they want to address it. And but if we don't address it, what is going to happen to this group of believers? The idea of theology, and the idea of black theology, first of all, but the true theology, true discipleship. What does it mean to be a follower of Christ? A lot of this stuff, in my personal opinion, is skewed in the black community. We have a mixture in the black community of black liberation theology and, Christianity, or even, some African spiritualism and Christianity. How do we specifically talk about these things as believers to be able to impact the black community? Now, I would also say that suicide rates among white men are skyrocketing. Now, how do we come together as leaders within the church to speak into this group of people? I think that it's okay to thread things out and say, what, this is impacting this group of people, and we need to have some focus right here on this group of people for this season, to be able to better them, to be able to, or help them better themselves, or to be able to bring truth to that area. So I don't know, that's just kind of some of my thoughts. I'm still thinking it through. I would love to begin to do a podcast to really speak into some of these things, and gather some leaders together to say, hey, look, you know what? I know that, the word on the street has been critical race theory since the time I was a child. This academic framework that's leaked out into, the culture has always been there for me. Now, what does the word really say? I would love to do something like that. So just pray for me in the way that God would lead. me to do that or to speak into to some of these areas, because if we're waiting, if the church overall, the American church is waiting for, the black community to get themselves together, I think we're going to be waiting for a while. We really have to do something, because we belong to each other. We are brothers and sisters collectively. And so, yeah, I don't know. That's just some of where I am. Tony Evans, Anthony Bradley, I think they're on the fence. I'd love to see them come around. I would too. I would too. Too many woke in the pulpit. They are more about what man thinks than what God says. CRT, mortification of the whiteness. Yeah. It's sad. And at what point are we going to specifically just address it and call it what it is? Let's see. You get fundamental beliefs like the Trinity wrong, as TD Jakes does. You'll get biblical unity wrong. I agree. I'm not saying that I support TD Jakes' message or anything like that. All I'm saying is that with such a huge platform, I wonder where his voice is. If Does he not see an issue with critical race theory? Does he not see an issue with the way that unity is being put forward, with racial reconciliation or any of these things? I just wonder, like, where are you? Let's see. Your voice to the issue is a gift to us all. Thank you. I pray God will clearly guide you. Thank you. Let's see. Rakita. What's up, Rakita? Pastor G. Craig Lewis of X Ministries in Texas speaks out against the racial hatred. He calls a spade a spade. His ministry is also on Facebook. Thank you. I will check that out. Let's see. Our church, Stonegate Fellowship, is developing a good mission to help smaller churches in other surrounding areas grow and to help build up churches that are speaking as you do about true biblical unity. I've also been told, yeah, Jakes has some issues. He does. Like, I am aware Jakes has some issues. I wasn't always aware. I used to actually watch his stuff and read his books quite a lot, but that was before I really understood a lot of things regarding apologetics and theology too. But yes, his stuff is problematic, and yet he still is one of the biggest voices in black church, or that black people watch. I can say him, I can say Creflo Dollar, I can look at gosh, there's another one, but still, where are they? Let's see.
Oh, Priscilla Schreier. People are saying,
Oh,
why
Priscilla.
doesn't she speak out?
I don't know why Priscilla Schreier doesn't speak out. Okay, let me see before I jump off of here. People have their heads in the sand. I don't know that I agree that people have their heads in the sand. I think people have their heads high above water and are looking and don't want to speak out against it because they don't want to be canceled. Now, if you want to say they intentionally have their head in the sand, maybe there's that. But, I don't know that the church has real footing to criticize the world when there is so much happening that we refuse to speak out against, that is happening in our body. CRT is a mess. Like, don't accept CRT. But, when we turn a blind eye almost to the indoctrination, to the bringing in of CRT into our local church body, there's so many things we have to really work on, and this is where I think the Center for Biblical Unity, the family, we have a unique opportunity. We have a unique opportunity to sit together on Thursdays, and hang out and truly be one. I don't care what your skin color is. I don't care what your background is. Don't come at me crazy. I'm not coming at you crazy. Like, we family. Like, that's it. We are family. That doesn't mean we don't make mistakes. There's tons of grace for mistakes, but we're family. You guys, we are family, and that's it. We have an opportunity to show the world what it looks like to really be family. And we should take that and give that out into culture. But instead, what we're doing is we're going out into culture and we're bringing that into the church. You guys, I'm tired. I need to take a nap. I need to take a nap. I believe that Priscilla Schreier has said things that are more supportive of BLM and CRT. That's unfortunate. That is unfortunate. But you know what? We are going to stay the path. We are going to continue to love, continue to have a biblical definition of love, have a biblical definition of justice, have a biblical definition of, you know, just, yeah. We are gonna define our terms correctly, and we are gonna move forward from there and keep going. And so don't lose heart. Don't lose heart. Please pray for the Center for Biblical Unity. Pray for Krista and I. Pray as I wrap up this blog post tonight. I would love to even get it out tomorrow, day after, because it truly will highlight an example of what injustice looks like, in real time at a Christian institution. You know, what does that look like? And it will call us to continue to participate in the godly ideals of justice. Sorry, I'm only with one eye over here. God's justice standards, and to live from that place. So that is it. I'm out of here, y'all. I'm about to go take a little breather. But I'm thankful for all of you. Take time to read the blog post that we put up today. Share it with your friends. Remind people that we don't participate according to the world, and yet, what the reality is that we are dealing with culture, completely in the church. And so we will speak truth to that. We will speak truth to error. Some people are like, speak truth to power. I say speak truth to error. We will speak truth to that. We will keep on going. We will pray, and we will live as family. So I am thankful for you guys. I'll see you next Thursday. All right. Bye, you guys.